What's up, everybody? Back again for Bitcoiners Guide episode 9 in your grill. Playing Marcus.
On, let's go.
Let's go. How many coins do you have?
Oh, not enough. Never enough.
Yeah, that's
How about you?
that is, never
Are you a
enough.
whole corner? Are you a multi-corner?
Dude, I lost.
Are you Satoshi billionaire?
I lost all my Bitcoin in a boating accident. It was tragic.
I have trouble believing that, Sean.
Yeah, me too. It's somewhere safe, and who knows how much I have? Only me and nobody else. That's the way it should be. So
it's all about how much of that pro ball income can you not spend and convert into Bitcoin.
Dude, if I could get paid on time out here in Spain, then we could be converting that to Bitcoin faster. My team's late on paying me. My team's got to pay me on time. That's what I'm trying to say. Pay me on time, but they are going to pay me in Bitcoin, so that's good. But that's
really, are they paying you in Bitcoin?
Yep, I'm about to get paid in Bitcoin. I showed
Are
them
you
how.
serious?
Yep.
They're not paying you in dirty euros?
Not in dirty euros, not in dirty.
So you are making them purchase Bitcoin to send to you?
Yes, I am.
Wow. That's
and
awesome.
Sending it to me over Lightning.
That is, we got to do an all episode on this topic when this happens, Sean.
Yeah.
Well, you heard it here, ladies and gentlemen, all the breaking news, all the important stuff.
It's actually they're actually paying me in Bitcoin because it's easier to pay me in Bitcoin because I'm leaving. Our season ends this weekend and I'm going back to the States. And like I said, they're late on paying me. So it actually just ended up working better to pay me. I was like, why don't you guys just pay me in Bitcoin? And they're like, okay, well, how do we do that? And so now they know. So getting it done.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah, so for everyone out there wondering, you can get paid in Bitcoin. You just gotta leave the country that you're working in. And that's the easiest way to get it done.
Yeah, that's crazy. I wonder how many people actually get paid in Bitcoin. I say it's very few.
Yeah. It won't be the first time I've ever been paid in Bitcoin. And it definitely won't be the last time I've ever been paid in Bitcoin. That's for sure. So for anyone new to this show, this is called Bitcoiner's Guide. Me and Plan Marcus, we sit down, have a conversation, talk about the things that we wish we would have learned about when we were first learning about Bitcoin. I'm Big Sean Harris. This is Plan Marcus. Let's get into what Bitcoin's price is. Marcus, we've been seeing some dips lately, dude. Dip for ants, as I like to call it. We were down like 4% earlier today. So a little timestamp. This is Monday, April 25th. It's 11:14 here in beautiful Tenerife, Canary Islands. And the price is at $40,000 and some change, like it was last week and like it was the week before. So we're up about 1% in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, we've been stuck in this range since the 3rd of January of this year, so almost 4 months now.
Yeah, we're just doing the crab walk right now. So today we got a great conversation. I'm excited because I get to talk with my good friend Marcus about Bitcoin. So let's get it started. No further ado, we got the Bitcoiner's Guide tip of the week, sponsored by mfmerch.com. It's actually not, but I'm hoping it will be one day. So Marcus, give us the tip. Give us just the tip.
Just the tip of the week.
Just the tip, not the whole thing.
Yeah, so we have this topic, right, where we choose every week to see what could it be that we talked about that we had trouble with learning when we were coming into the space. And one of the things that we struggled with was, what is hash rate? Right, Sean?
Yes, that was hard for me to learn. I was a normie when it came to the hash rate.
Yeah, and another cool thing about this show is that we don't really prepare much up front, so we just have the conversation as it goes. So without any preparation, we're going to try and explain what the hash rate really is. I'll go first, Sean, and please just fill me in where I'm like dropping the ball, where I'm forgetting stuff. But
Yeah, like how did you first, when you're trying to figure out, what did you do to figure out what the hash rate is? Like what were you doing, you know?
yeah, to be honest, I don't really remember. It's kind of a while ago already.
Yeah.
But I do remember just reading the white paper, Bitcoin's white paper that Satoshi Nakamoto wrote. I read it multiple times trying to understand it, because at some point, it becomes a little bit technical, but
Yeah.
most of it, if you read it, it's actually quite good to read and understandable, because it's written pretty concise. And the parts you don't get, you kind of skip over, right? And you just try to pick up what you can pick up out of it. So from there, I understood how what the function of the mining is, right? Because first you have to understand what is it that a miner actually does. And basically, a miner is just a way to get Bitcoin, and you're basically just using a computer to guess random numbers, because to find the solution for the next block, you need to find a a number that when you insert that, you have to find a number that starts with a certain number of zeros. So
Yeah.
when the mining difficulty, it increases as more and more people start to mine, and thus the Bitcoin difficulty level is adjusted automatically by the code. But Bitcoin miners, they're just guessing numbers, and whoever can guess the number first and find a number with the required amount of zeros can then win the next block and get the block reward for that block.
Yeah. So I like that explanation. I look at it like to mine Bitcoin. So I look at the hash rate as the energy that it takes to mine Bitcoin. So I think that was like the hardest thing for me to understand, was like, what is hash and hash rate? And you explained the mining part just, great, right? Like when you're mining for Bitcoin, it's just guessing numbers and hopefully guesses the right one. And it might be a little bit more technical than that, but just think about it like that. That's how I look at it. It's guessing numbers, or putting the
So
piece, like
yeah,
the puzzle together, or an algorithm, right? What were you gonna say?
yeah. When I explain it to people, it's kind of like a padlock, with a number lock on it, right? If you have like three numbers on it, you can actually just start with 000, and then your next hash will be 001, and then the hash after that is 002, and then 003, and you kind of like go there until you reach 009, and then you go to 010, and your next hash will be 011. And with
Yeah.
three digits, like you can do that, and you probably be done in like 30 minutes, and you've had all 999 numbers
Yeah.
hashed, right? A computer will do it a lot faster, of course. So the hash rate on a computer will go a lot faster. And it's basically how many number combinations can you, that's how I see hashes, like how many guesses can you do per second, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And the more guesses you can do per second, the higher the chances that you're going to find the next solution.
Yeah, and I mean, you even just counting 001, Justin Trudeau he'd have a tough time with that, because he's dysnumeric, dysnumeric. So
I just heard that this week as well.
yeah, and all love to anyone who's dysnumeric out there, but so yeah, it's guessing numbers. The hash rate is, as you guess numbers, that takes energy. The computer's working hard as it's guessing those numbers. It's getting a lot of the miners, they get hot, they make a lot of noise when they're mining. It's doing this like buzzing thing. And so that's what the hash rate is, the energy that it takes to actually mine Bitcoin. So when people say that Bitcoin like it's just created out of nothing, we can be like, actually, it's not created out of nothing. It's created from energy. And that kind of blows people's minds, because then they go,
like what's backing it, right? You need to actually purchase like computers, or actually ASICs, right?
Yeah.
Specific computers that for mining Bitcoin, which cost money, and also the energy to run those costs money as well. So that's actually what's backing Bitcoin. And again, it's really it's energy, it's computing power. And the funny thing is, you can find statistics all over the internet about what the hash rate of Bitcoin is, but there's actually no way of really knowing what the current hash rate is. We can only derive what the hash rate is. And the way we derive it is that we look at the block times. So how long does it take between blocks to find the next block? Because, and when you know what the difficulty level is, and you know how much time it takes to mine the next block, from those two, you can derive how many computations there are made per second.
Yeah.
On average, and that's just based on statistics. So it's not accurate either. It's like an average, and different sites will calculate different hash rates over, for instance, what is your average block time? Do you look at the last block, or will you take like the average of like the last 10 blocks, or the last 100 blocks, or the last 1,000 blocks?
Or the last 216 blocks, right? So it's
that's
the
yeah.
difficulty.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's honestly, hash rate is something that may take a little bit of time to understand what it is. Just keep studying it little by little, and keep listening to Bitcoiner's Guide, because we got all the tips. We give you just the tip.
Basically, if you want to keep it simple, I always just see it just says something about like how many people are mining. If you really want to like kind of like dumb it down, I mean, it's not really people, but you know, like how many people are activating how many machines to mine Bitcoin. So what is your competition, your mining competition, if you are trying to mine Bitcoin instead of just buying it out flat, right?
Yeah.
So the more people that will start mining, and the more computers that are allocated to mining, the higher the hash rate, and the more decentralized it is.
So what happens? Okay, here's a good question. What happens if less people start to mine? Like, what happens if people are mining and they take their miners off of the Bitcoin network and the hash rate goes down? Like, what happens then?
Well, when the hash rate goes down and the difficulty adjustment hasn't taken place yet, that means that the difficulty is actually high, but the hash rate is leaving. So then it will take longer for the remaining people that are hashing, that are mining. Yeah. It will take longer for the remaining miners to find the next block. So the block time should increase.
Okay. So
after, I think it's 2,100 blocks, every 2,100 blocks that the
every 2,000
difficulty adjustment.
It's actually every 2016 blocks. And the interesting fact is there was the executive order 6102. That was back in the 1930s, when in the United States, there was the executive order from the president of the United States, who said that he basically confiscated all the gold of all the Americans. It was illegal to hold gold at that time. And which is crazy, right? To think that there was a time in the United States where it was illegal to hold gold. And so it just shows you that the freedoms of the citizens can be taken away in a country. And that was Executive Order 6102. If you flip it, it's 2016. And that is the space between, there's 2016 blocks in every difficulty adjustment, which ends up being about 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, if there's more miners, more hash rate being added to the network, every 2 weeks after 2016 blocks, which come every 10 minutes, then the difficulty adjustment will get harder, will increase. So that way, because it just adjusts for the mining, for the hash rate. If the hash rate goes down and miners pull off of the network, then after that 2016, those 2016 blocks, then the difficulty adjustment will decrease, and it'll go down to make up for that. So Bitcoin is like this self-regulating thing that tries to keep blocks at 10 minutes per block, all the time. So it's pretty cool how it does that.
This is really one of like the most genius things
Yes.
that Satoshi's built into this thing, right? So basically just making sure that no matter how many people will start mining or how little, it's a self-regulating, self-balancing system that will try to maintain an average of 10 minutes between every block, so that, and since every 210,000 blocks we get a halving, and you know that the issuance schedule of how many bitcoins come into into existence, that's how it's regulated by, and that's just genius. So it doesn't really matter, like if you compare it to gold, if you have a lot more miners or a lot more people that will start digging into the ground looking for gold as the price rises,
Yes.
then we're going to find more gold, and you're going to get like more gold being issued or coming above ground, right? And that will have like you get more goods, so then the price should go back down again. That's how the gold price is kind of self-balancing itself.
Yeah.
However, Bitcoin is number go up technology, right? What's being balanced is the amount of Bitcoin that's being mined every year.
You can't
regardless
mine.
regardless of the amount of people mining it, and that is something that just doesn't exist in the world before Bitcoin.
It's just true. It's true scarcity. It's the first time we've ever been able to have something that's truly scarce, that no matter what you do, no matter how many people want it, there won't be any more made, and it won't, no, like more won't come faster. It'll just keep coming out at the same rate, no matter what. It's truly genius. We've never had anything like this before. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. A lot of people that think that they know about Bitcoin, like you go on Twitter and there will be people that, these economists or whoever that hate on Bitcoin. And then if you were to ask them, what's the difficulty adjustment that we just talked about, they would have no idea. And it's like, you can't, like, how can you hate on Bitcoin? You don't even know what the difficulty adjustment is, like, how can you hate on it if you don't know these things that are so ingenious about Bitcoin? And when you find these things out about Bitcoin, it's the opposite. You don't hate on it. You're just like, Satoshi was a genius, almost as big of a genius as Greg Zadge. One, by the way, he's a genius in case everyone was wondering. Okay, Satoshi was a bigger genius than Greg, let's be honest.
And again, right, like the fact that you actually do have to do all this guessing work and all this what we call mining, right? You really have to like put in efforts to really get a Bitcoin or to get some Bitcoin. It takes a lot of effort right now. The hash rate is really high.
Yeah.
That gives it value because somebody who got that Bitcoin really put in the work to get it. So whoever got that is not going to sell it for just like, or give it away for free. That's literally, to me, it seems that is like at least the minimum price that somebody would sell it for. So
yeah, the energy cost to mine Bitcoin,
right.
That like at minimum that sets the floor price
and money and energy that you put in.
Yeah.
Hey, and now what is also funny, right? When I think about mining, especially I think back in 2017, people were telling me, yeah, by now it really doesn't make sense to mine anymore because it's so difficult and you need like these application-specific integrated circuits like ASICs to mine Bitcoin. It's super technical and difficult. But in the meantime, I mean, I'm not a miner. I haven't mined, but I know a lot of people who have, and it's really not that complicated, right? I mean, yeah, the miner costs quite a bit of money right now.
Yeah, maybe
but after that, it's pretty straightforward. You don't have to be like a rocket scientist or anything to do it. And that's also the way Satoshi created Bitcoin, right? Super simple, open to everybody, and anybody can mine Bitcoin.
Yeah, depending on your price.
There seems to be like, it's probably has to do with that miners obviously don't want more competition, right? So the people that are mining are maybe a little bit incentivized to say that it's not that great to mine Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying it's not that.
You think there's something to that, or?
I wouldn't put it past a lot of the bigger miners, at least. Most of like the pleb miners, though, are telling people to mine. Like if you talk to a lot of the pleb miners, like this is the best thing. They keep getting sats coming in. It's KYC free, and which basically just means it's not connected to your name or your bank account. So you you have private sats coming to your wallet, as long as you keep that wallet separate from your KYC wallet. So it's just like, why would you, if you have the extra money, or if you have like a decent amount of Bitcoin, some people look at it like, okay, I'm going to buy a miner with my Bitcoin, and that way I'm going to get more Bitcoin. It's like almost like an investment with your Bitcoin, depending on how high and you don't really know how high the hash rate is going to go. You don't know how high price is going to go. And you also don't know the price of your energy, but you can kind of try to plan those things out. You do know the price of these things right now, but you don't know the future price of these things, and what inflation is going to do, what the price of Bitcoin is going to do. And so those things are just, I'm not saying buy a miner, don't buy a miner. The thing about mining that I really like is that you're helping to protect the network. So that's something that we didn't even cover with the hash rate, is the hash rate also provides security. Mining provides security for the Bitcoin network, which is the most powerful computing network on the planet. And so that is also pretty insane about the hash rate, is that to hack Bitcoin, you have to come with a lot of hash rate to even hack it. And so it's theoretically it's possible, but in practice, it's basically impossible now to hack Bitcoin. And the way I look at it is, Bitcoin's been around for 13 years. It's never been hacked. It actually makes more sense if you're going to buy that many miners and get all that hash rate, instead of hacking the network, it actually makes sense to mine and protect the network, because you get incentivized and you get more Bitcoin and you get paid to do that. So the incentives also are another thing that Satoshi just aligned perfectly with Bitcoin. So the hash rate is super important. It's the basis, that's part of the proof of work that you were talking about, Marcus. Like, proof of work that's what makes it so you can't just press a button and create more units like they do with the dollar. And the dollar is proof of stake, and Bitcoin's proof of work. There has to be work done to actually get Bitcoin. You can't just print it from nothing.
Yeah. And now the funny thing is, there were two news items there around mining and also proof of work. And one of the thing was that there's this company called Compass Mining. What they do is they offer, instead of you having to buy your own miner, install your own miner at home, having all the noise from the miner, having to put 220 volts ready to run your miner, etc. You can also just pay Compass Mining or a company similar like it. And what they do is a hosted mining service, right? So you pay them, they will buy the mining rig for you, set it up in their facility and run it for you, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, it's going to cost you a fee. And they were doing this, and they found locations with cheap energy, and they had a big operation in Russia.
Yep. Do you have an article out there? Yeah,
we do have an article. So I was just going to read it up. Do a quick screen share. Should be it. So here we say, U.S. crypto mining company sells gear stuck in Russia to avoid sanctions. We got the war in Ukraine going on, and we're completely sanctioning everything that's Russian. So also there was a word, let me just read it right here. Compass Mining, that's the company, is seeking to liquidate $30 million of equipment. U.S. sanctioned Bit River this week over Russian operations. An American crypto mining company is trying to quickly liquidate $30 million of hardware in Siberia after the U.S. sanctioned a rival over its Russian operations. Compass Mining Inc. is seeking buyers in Russia for mining equipment with 12 megawatts of capacity that can be moved out of the country. The U.S. Treasury Department this week imposed the sanctions on Switzerland-based Bit River, one of the industry's largest providers of data center services. Miners have flocked to Russia in part to take advantage of low-cost power from natural gas and hydropower dams. See, that's the thing, Sean. Miners love cheap energy, and Russia had a lot of it. And fortunately now they got the bad side of the deal, and now they're going to have to liquidate it. And the customers of this company that had their miners with Compass are now faced with their miners being sold, and hopefully they're getting their money back. But obviously your operation is being disrupted. It's not what you want. So it's kind of similar as with Bitcoin itself. If you don't hold your keys, it's not your coin. If it's not your miner, if you don't hold your miner, it's really not your miner. That's kind of the lesson we take from this, right?
Yeah, not your garage, not your miner, right there. Put your miners in your own garage.
Is that something you would consider, mining with like a hosted facility? I mean,
no, I would never consider doing that because of what just happened. You have less control over it, and I would rather know the ins and outs of what's going on, and just mine and do it myself instead of relying on a third party to mine. It just doesn't. It does, like, the whole thing about Bitcoin is for personal freedom and personal accountability, and it's just something new to learn. Like, there't always something new to learn within Bitcoin. Variety is the best of life.
Got you. Also, like, for me, it would be like the only reason I would really want to mine is just to get that KYC free Bitcoin, and if you're gonna do it on some hosted service, then they're gonna KYC you again. So
that's the number. Yeah, that's the
and they're gonna like take a cut of your Bitcoin too. So like, why would they do that? Right?
And I guess like it makes the only reason it would make sense if, like, say you lived in a really expensive energy country in Europe, or in a state like California, New York, where your energy, like your price per kilowatt hour is super high. And you're like, okay, well, I can outsource this to a country like out in Russia, Compass Mining, and they can find cheap energy for me. And then I can actually mine. I guess that's the only reason that would make sense. And you feel like you're still helping out and protecting the network. But yeah, there's just a lot of negative things with that. There's a lot of negative trade-offs, and I would rather just mine on my own and get that KYC Bitcoin, get the KYC free Bitcoin.
All right, quick jump to like the next topics. There was a lot of news again around the EU trying to ban proof of work. There's these ongoing efforts. Also, Brad, or Bad Garlic Mouth, as we call him, he constantly bringing out FUD from XRP. They want to say that there's nothing really backing any crypto. We just need proof of stake. We don't need proof of work because it's too energy intensive. Well, that's exactly what makes this thing, trustless. If you are accepting a Bitcoin from somebody, that person put in the work and did not get it for free, right? The minute you make money free, then that money is worth absolutely nothing. So especially when somebody else can just create it with a click of a mouse. But yet, this basic thing that Satoshi discovered and what makes Bitcoin so successful, they just don't get it, in my opinion. And that's all they hear is, one transaction is consumes the amount of energy that Argentina does in a year. It's just
the dumbest argument. It makes
all those
no
numbers.
sense.
Let's really not go into that again. But all that FUD, just it's going to take significant time before everybody catches on to how Bitcoin really works, and then they'll realize that banning proof of work is really the dumbest thing you can do. Also, it's like completely how are you going to execute a proof of work ban, right? So these guys are chasing their tails in the dark, while raccoons are biting them at the heels or something. I don't know. Let's just keep an eye on what's going on. I really don't have any, but it's just saddening to see that, they're trying to slow this thing down while we should be moving forward.
Like all these policymakers, I think I saw a tweet earlier today, and it was saying that EU policymakers want to promote Ethereum over Bitcoin. And I'm just like, all of this just goes back to what is the issue that Bitcoin solves. And Bitcoin is solving central bank inflation, the corruption of central banks through inflation and through centralization of the money. And Bitcoin is the first time that we'll have a money that can't be controlled by the state. It's the separation of state and money. And all of the other altcoins, it's just like it's more fiat, it's just how I look at it. It's more fiat. The euro, the dollar, all that's the same as Ethereum, XRP. All these things can be controlled and they can be inflated. They can be manipulated. And so it's just all these Web3 billionaire geniuses that they think that they can create something better than Bitcoin, and they can't, because all they're doing is they're recreating Wall Street. They're just recreating it on a blockchain, and that solves zero issues for what's going on. It's like, well, why? Like the only reason they're doing this is because they're greedy, and they have big egos. And so then you have plebs like us that are just like, this.
It's greed, it's big egos, but it's also just an attack on Bitcoin, Sean.
Yes.
Like these guys know that they're in trouble. They have no way of shutting down Bitcoin. They see the adoption. They see the systemic risk it poses to their very existence, right? To manipulate markets, to control markets, et cetera, et cetera. So, sometimes, depending who you're looking at, those are the useful idiots, right? But yeah, my take is that the people that know what's going on, they know very well what this means, and they are happy for every attack they can do towards Bitcoin. So if they can go after proof of work, because we need to take care of our planet, and energy usage is inherently bad. We've discussed this before, which it's not, obviously. But they're going to use all that stuff to try and keep Bitcoin down, to slow it down, to change, the attitudes of people, to get people to vote against it, to try and ban it, because they know it's an existential threat to their existence, right?
Yes.
So it's just an all-out attack. We're definitely in the fight you stage. First, they laughed at us back in 2017. We were literally being laughed at. Just before that, we were completely being ignored.
Yeah.
Right now, they are all out fighting us. And the fighting is probably going to get a lot worse, as Bitcoin is not going to stop.
It will.
And I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it will. So continuing on with that, there's this article in Cointelegraph. And it says Ukraine bans Bitcoin purchases with local currency amid martial law. There's two paragraphs that really stood out to me. And it says the Ukrainian central bank officially announced Thursday a set of restrictions on cross-border operations, prohibiting individuals from buying cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin with the national fiat currency, the hryvnia. Don't know how to pronounce. No idea how to pronounce. Hryvnia, the Virginia. I have no idea how to pronounce their currency. Then the next paragraph, it says Ukrainians are now allowed to buy Bitcoin. This is interesting. They're now allowed to buy Bitcoin and other current cryptocurrencies only with foreign currency, with total monthly purchases limited to about $3,000. The relevant limit also applies to international peer-to-peer transactions. So what I thought was really interesting about this was, at first it says they're banned, Ukrainians are banned from buying Bitcoin, which is true, but only in their local currency. So it's not a law. There's no illegal law of buying Bitcoin. You just can't buy it with the local currency. So, which also makes me think this is something to try to protect their local currency from hyperinflating away into something like Bitcoin. I think that's what a lot of these countries see, is that as people flee from the country, if they at least hold that currency, then it won't lose as much value. But if they're all transferring it into Bitcoin, then there's just no demand for the local currency. So it's all these, they're trying to grab these straws, and this is going to happen with the dollar too, as the dollar eventually will end up going through a hyperinflationary event like all fiats do. there will be a time where the U.S. government will also say, we'll probably try to do the same thing where you can't buy Bitcoin with U.S. dollars or something like that. So I think it's good to see these things. I mean, obviously this is terrible, but it's good to see these things to prepare us for certain possibilities that could happen in our local national currencies as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not only happening in Ukraine, because I also saw an article on the some report from the IMF, where according to the report, there has been an increase in cryptocurrency use in emerging markets. Not only Ukraine, and the IMF fears that this increase is partially due to an increased effort to avoid identification checks. You know, like they always raise concerns about terrorist activity, fraud, AML, you know, money laundering, etc. So we need to ID people that do these transactions, you know, which obviously is something that needs to be done. But it seems to me that they're using that a little bit too frequent.
Yeah, it's I mean, essentially, if you ban buying Bitcoin in your local currency, it's probably going to be pretty hard for your citizens to buy Bitcoin. But it's by law in Ukraine, it's not illegal to buy Bitcoin. It's just illegal to buy it with the local government currency. I have no idea what it looks like in Ukraine. Like if they like use different currencies normally, if they have other currencies in their bank account, I have no idea what that looks like. I know like in the United States, it's just dollars. So and like the same thing here in Spain, people just have euros. They don't have like a bank account in other currencies. And so I imagine if Ukraine says you can't buy Bitcoin, you can only buy Bitcoin in other currencies, for most people, for probably 99% of the people, that means you can't buy Bitcoin. That's what I would imagine.
Yeah. It's something I think about a lot, right? I mean, a government can force you to take a certain type of currency, especially if you're working for the government, right? If you're a teacher, or you work in a hospital, or you work for the government building, or you work at a tax department, or you work for some other nationalized company, whether it's like the water company or the fire department or the police. You know, in every country there's a lot of people working for the government, and they're always going to get paid in the currency of that nation state, right? So that means if you want to buy Bitcoin with it, you got to find a way to change that national currency into Bitcoin, unless you're getting paid in Bitcoin like you, Sean, which is very few still at this time. But yeah, and if a currency starts to hyperinflate, then you're in trouble, right? Because you got to spend that money right away, or just stop accepting that you know, things really have to break. So anyway, we're going out far into the future. Hey, you also had this clip from the IMF, right? Because here the IMF is again talking about like how they want to impose sanctions and get more financial stability. But we also have the director of the IMF this week. You know, she was on a panel discussion with from the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, and also Christine Lagarde from the European Central Bank was there. And there was also the Minister of Finance from Indonesia on the panel. And it was quite a long clip. I was watching it. I even tweeted out like, look, people, here we have these people on this panel and nobody wants to listen to it. But then towards the end, I overheard her like mentioning this this clip where she basically says, you know, there's a law of unintended consequences that we often don't. Okay, to reverse a little bit, the moderator asked all of them something along the lines of, you know, in closing, what are the things we should look at, you know, that we are maybe dropping the ball on? And the director of the IMF, who you will hear speak just now, she then concluded or summed it up as, you know, we often don't think about the law of unintended consequences. We go from one crisis to the next, and we act very fast, and we don't really think about, you know, unintended consequences. And take now, for example, the spending we have to do. And with spending, you know, she meant like, all right, COVID was there, everybody needed to spend or print money to stimulate the economy. And they created too much units, too much money into the system, while there are too little goods. Because, you know, you can create more money, but if there's no more products being created in the system, then you have more money per product, and thus inflation. Anyway, hear it from the horse's mouth herself.
Let's take a
look at this clip.
Great tweet right here by Plan Marcus, by the way. Almost a million views. Look at that.
So that thing really took off. It's a
good clip. Let's take a listen in.
I think we are not paying sufficient attention to the law of unintended consequences. We take decisions with an objective in mind and rarely think through what may happen that is not our objective. And then we wrestle with the impact of it. Take any decision that is a massive decision, like the decision that we need to spend to support the economy. You know, at that time, we did recognize that may lead to too much money in circulation, too few goods, but didn't really quite think through the consequence in a way that upfront would have informed better what we do. And
Dude, it's so crazy, right? Because like reading the comments is so funny, because a lot of people said, oh, they're saying the things that they usually say quietly, they're saying it out loud now.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And also what's very obvious in the comments is also that you have one group of people saying like, oh, well, at least they're being honest now and admitting that they have no idea what they're doing, but these are the people in control of our money and, you know, the entire monetary policy. And they just have no idea, they're not thinking their things through, you know, like that's crazy. And then there's this other faction of people that say, I don't believe a word that she's saying. They know exactly what they're doing and they're just playing us. This is all according to plan. Now they can continue executing on their plan. So whatever group you fall into.
But that doesn't make much sense, because how could they not know, or how could they know exactly what they're doing? The only way that I would agree with that, so I'm just trying to play like, how do I agree with that? It would be if they realize that we're in a ton of debt, like the central banks do, and maybe their goal is to let inflation run hot, while at the same time saying we never saw this coming, to inflate away debt, right? I think that would be the only way, is if in their mind they're thinking the only way that we're going to get out of this debt crisis is to inflate away the debt, which doing that, you still have to make sure you don't let inflation run so hot that that people just leave your system with Bitcoin, because in the past there wasn't anything like Bitcoin. So when inflation did run high like it did in the 70s, there was nowhere you could even go to. You had to take that on the chin. But now you don't have to. Like, now you can opt out and move into something else if you pay attention to what's going on. Most people aren't even paying attention though, which is crazy. Why? Like, most people feel this pain. They feel the pain of inflation. They feel like there's something wrong systemically with money, but they still don't like look up and try to figure out why, or try to study money. They work so hard.
There's just so much interest in the background, Sean.
Yeah.
If you have the power that they have, where you can literally print trillions of US dollars and allocate that where you see fit, right? You can redistribute wealth, right? You decide where that wealth goes. Should Boeing stay on? We're going to send some money to Boeing, right? What else do we need? You know, like, we need infrastructure. We need military spending. And when I say military spending or infrastructure, it's not just that the money goes there, it's also that there's all kind of contracts, specific
Yes.
places where that money needs to go, right? And sure, the politicians are very honest people, and they're going to do it, in a very democratic way, and that everybody has a fair chance of accessing that money. That is just complete bullshit, right? Because as a politician, you have insider information, where their budget is coming and whether it's not approved, when the application process for these contracts are open, who's participating. You're constantly being handed gifts from these participating contractors that are trying to win this contract, right? So you're going to get offered like gifts in form of houses, vacations, you name it. In every country, there's that type of corruption that's not really visible to the. So they get to create this massive wealth, hand out all these dollars for new contracts and new investments. And yeah, by handing it out, they're in a privileged position and they can get paid for that. The interests are too big. The temptation to make money at all different kind of levels is huge, and that's what's going on. That's the hard part. Not only does it allow you to run like a continuous deficit, like a deficit in your balance for the country. Oh, I don't have enough money to pay for it. Let's just print some more money, right? It's
and not to mention wars, right? Like think about the wars that are endless too.
Right.
But did you see the clip earlier this week too, or last week, of Joe Biden? He was speaking like in the courtyard or something of the White House, and he said something like,
was that when he was facing away from the mic?
Yes, he was like turned totally backwards, which I was like, who is he speaking to? First of all, like he's got a microphone in front of him and he's like totally just turned around. But he was saying that all military vehicles, all army vehicles will be climate friendly, and they're spending billions of dollars to ensure that every army vehicle in the United States military and army is climate friendly. And I'm just like,
let me be completely clear, right? You see continue. Sorry.
Yeah, let me just say, the first thought that came to my mind was, who's getting paid on these climate friendly vehicle contracts? That was the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, who's getting paid off of this? So like, this has nothing to do with the climate. It just has to do with, I have a buddy and I'm going to make him the president of some ESG, like electric vehicle, military vehicle company. And then he's going to get paid a ton of money to do these contracts. It's just like, that's what, like, you're going to bomb a village, but you're going to do it with climate friendly vehicles. So I guess it just balances itself out, right?
Yeah, I wish I prepared for this, because like the US Army, with all its ships, all its aircraft, all its diesel trucks, and you name it, right? I mean, they're not gonna like electrify all these tanks, right? It's just probably like personnel, like it's probably just like the cars they drive to the office with, because you have like all these personnel that work in offices as well, not only like the Humvees that get sent to the desert and stuff, right? I can't even imagine those being like electrified, right?
Yeah, like, what do they do?
That's just
imagine
the irony and the hypocrisy is, of course, that the US Army is probably the #1 biggest CO2 producer
in the world.
In the world, or it's going to be up there, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, what are they going to do? Are they going to have like a charging station in the middle of the Saharan desert, or the middle of some Afghan desert, like to charge their electric Humvee or something? Like, what are they going to do? It's just, what's crazy about the government is that any business that makes a decision on spending large sums of money, which billions of dollars is large sums of money, any business that decides on doing that, they have to like put a business plan together. They have to make sure like it's an investment that's going to pay out in the future. But with the government, they just have the money printer, and so they go, we can fund anything that we want to fund, because we have the money printer, and there's no end to the money printer.
And they
so,
don't have to. They don't have to increase taxes. They don't have to
yeah,
say, okay, now everybody that is a car owner has to pay like $5 extra in a month to pay for this. No, they're not increases taxes anywhere. So the population thinks, well, as long as I don't have to pay more, then I don't care. But by printing all that new, freshly minted money, they're literally diluting you and taking the money from you without you noticing it. And that's the insidious, quiet tax that people don't realize.
the
And if
silent,
they, yeah,
silent tax of inflation, the
you
silent
know,
tax.
if they keep doing it sneaky, but a little bit, you know, like controlled, they get away with it because we're like, oh yeah, money always devaluates over time. Everything's just getting more expensive. It's just normal, right? So then we don't wake up. But now that they've really just like gone berserk in the past 2 years,
Messed
we're
up.
seeing like almost double digits year over year,
They
and
messed
we've got
up.
all these problems. And now people are starting to feel it, and yet still they're pointing at the war in Ukraine and energy and global supply chains and all that kind
They
of
think
stuff.
they think that they're gods. Like they think that they can take our money from us and there's going to be no like this is another unintended consequence. The more that you steal people's time through inflation, the more people wake up to what's going on. And this is where they messed up, because even if they were trying to inflate away debt and they were trying to have 8.5% inflation, which is CPI, which isn't actually real inflation. Real inflation is higher than that. Those are the official numbers that they give us. But if the Federal Reserve, the central banks of the world were trying to inflate away debt, they're running it so hot that people are like, what's going on, right? And then you got all these little Bitcoiners out here like you and me that are just, we're constantly dropping little orange pills on people left and right. So I'm
And
going to
that
keep dropping
that messaging is going really far. I really do notice that more people are understanding, even if they don't understand Bitcoin, right? More and more people are talking about inflation and the
Yes.
money printer, and money printer go burr, and they're just spending money. So their game is up. I mean, this narrative is spreading so fast. I mean, they're in serious trouble. It's their game is up. I'm telling you, they might be able to like stretch it out for maybe just a few more years, but the
Don't
people
be
are catching up.
surprised.
Wasn't it Henry Ford who said if people knew how like our money actually operates, they'd be riots in the streets by tomorrow or something? This is
Exactly.
literally what's happening right now, in my opinion.
Exactly. People,
Yeah.
yeah, you can't stop the truth. And that is the truth of what's happening to our money. And you can't stop an idea. And Bitcoin is an idea. It's a better system. It's a system that's laid out extremely well for money. And you can't stop the truth on one end, which the truth is that the money is getting inflated. You're losing time, and you can't stop an idea, which is Bitcoin is going to absorb all monetary premiums. So this is going to be fun to watch when these two things collide. What do we got?
Talking about another thing you can't stop, right? Let's talk ETFs, because the Australians are fed up. They wanted Bitcoin spot ETF. And apparently there's already more than a $1 billion demand for Bitcoin through an ETF, right? So these are all kind of institutions that can't buy Bitcoin outright for whatever charters or restrictions they have within their company, but they do want to invest. They want exposure in Bitcoin, so they need an ETF. And now Australia's first Bitcoin ETF is about to launch on April 27th, which is probably today for most people when you're watching this, or this week. Very exciting, a lot of demand. You know, it's great when I see these kind of articles, because I'm like, yes, I front ran these people again. You know, when Michael Saylor came out, I was like, yes, I front ran Michael Saylor.
Yep.
You know, when Elon Musk came out, we were like, we front ran him as well.
Is this a spot ETF or futures ETF?
This is a Bitcoin spot ETF.
Okay, nice.
So that's really nice. Actually, what I've read, I don't know if it says it in this article as well, but what they're going to do is they're actually just going to buy the Canadian purpose ETF. So Canada was the first one with a spot ETF. And I guess they just created some kind of a bridge that they can get exposure to that Canadian ETF, which is fine, you know, as long as people can buy it. and get exposure. So that's some very bullish news. Look forward to that 1 billion coming in this week.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting too is that, so like if you look at market capitalization, which in short we call market cap, that is all of the Bitcoin times the price of Bitcoin. So the market cap is sitting around just under $1 trillion right now. But if you buy $1 billion of Bitcoin, that doesn't add $1 billion onto the market cap of Bitcoin. It adds a lot more than $1 billion because people aren't willing to just sell as the price is going up. Not everyone's just willing to sell at the price. Like Marcus and I, we hold Bitcoin. We're not selling Bitcoin at 40,000, at 50,000. We're not selling it at all, right? And so you have to keep bumping up the price as more demand comes into Bitcoin. So $1 billion buying Bitcoin adds more than $1 billion to the market cap of Bitcoin, which is a really interesting thing to think about. So it pushes the price up faster as more money comes into Bitcoin. So just, it's just another thing to be bullish.
It's something I struggle with, right? Because we know as more monetary units come into Bitcoin, the price go up. How that relation works exactly is a bit of a mystery as well, and it's not always very clear. So trying to explain how the price is, why won't we see like maybe the price run up this week? Maybe it will, maybe it won't, right? Like, but in the end, it has to go up.
NGU technology, number go up.
Yeah. All right, what else do we have?
I think what's going on with these interest rates right now? I think you might have.
I had another. Wait, let me just pull this up real quick. Share screen. It's another interesting item that was here. I'm just going to call him Holger because he has a very difficult last name, but I think he's great follow. He always has great charts and news to share about the macroeconomics. And he writes, end of an era, negative yields vanish from world's corporate bond market as investors brace for monetary tightening. And here it is, all bonds in global high-grade index now yield 0% or more. And that's a dramatic turnaround from August when there was still more than 1.5 trillion US dollars of debt that came with sub-zero yield. So there was more than 1.5 trillion US dollars of debt that was yielding a negative interest rate, right? So negative interest rates only showed up, I believe, since 2015 or 2014. So it's a very recent phenomenon. Many people thought it was ludicrous at the time, that it could never happen. The yields have never gone negative yet in the United States, but Germany, for instance, had like up to like almost 5% negative yielding debt, which means that you're paying money for something that's gonna like cost you money to give them the money, right? So you're putting $100 in and they're saying, all right, if you give us the $100, I'll give you $95 back, right? That's like a negative 5% yielding offer. Why the hell would you do that?
Because you're scared. You don't know
because there's simply nothing else to put your money in. And you just rather have like the certain 1% loss versus like a bigger loss or something. Yeah, I don't know. It's beyond my pay grade. I don't work in institutional finance, but there's apparently a lot of institutions that buy these kind of bonds. But you have a big more knowledge on this than me, Sean.
Well, I just look at it like this, right? To the most simple way I can put it is holding a negative yielding bond would be like putting your money into a bank and then paying the bank every month to hold your money there. You would never do that. You would never put your money in the bank, in a bank account where you have to pay the bank every single month for them just to hold your money. You would go to a different bank, or you would not put your money in the bank because you'd be like, I can, at least if I put my money under my mattress, I don't have to pay a fee every single month to hold my money there.
If you have $1 billion, Sean,
that's the issue. Is when you have
maybe you want to pay a bank because it also comes with protection.
That's the thing is bonds are looked at as risk off, while stocks are looked at as risk on. And the reason is because bonds normally have like they'll be paid back. That's what it's looked at as. Bonds will always be paid back. If a company issues a bond, even if the company goes bankrupt, more than likely they still have to pay that bond back. It has higher priority. But if the company goes bankrupt and you hold their stock and the stock goes to zero, there's no, that's why it's risk on. There's no guarantee that you're going to be able to keep your money. So there's more risk in stocks, but normally there's more reward. In bonds, there's less risk, so it's called risk off, and that's why people put their money into bonds, because they go, well, if anything, I might have to pay a fee every year for them to hold my billions of dollars, but at least I know at the end of 5 years or 10 years, I'm gonna get this $1 billion back. And so that's why they'll hold that money in negative yielding bonds. What I find funny about how he words this is he says, end of an era, all bonds globally, high grade index now yield 0% or more. It's a dramatic turnaround from August. It's like dramatic. Oh, so now they're yielding 0%. Such a dramatic turnaround. Now your money is worth zero instead of being negative. Now it's just worth zero. And that's just such a big, it's just like this massive mind-blowing event. And
yeah, but still, to be fair, right? If I've been listening to like Preston Pish and all the other guys, it's like the interest rates have been trending to like 0% and now going negative, like since the 1970s, basically.
yeah,
And it's just been going down and down and down towards zero, and money is becoming effectively free, right? Because
yes,
if you're not paying like any interest on it, then it's just free money, right?
free.
So and it's even gone negative. So it was like, why they kept saying we can't raise rates because there's so much debt in the world. If the interest rates go up, then how many extra money would they have to print just to service all that debt, right? So, but instead, even though everybody was saying it's impossible for them to raise rates, we are seeing rates going up and yields going up. So what's up with that? And I mean, even here in the Netherlands, by the way, let me just add on to that. A friend of mine just bought a house, and another friend as well, and they both mentioned to me that like the interest rates on mortgages have doubled.
Yeah,
it went from like 1.2 to like 2.4% on like a 10 or 20-year mortgage.
but this goes back to what we were speaking about earlier, right? Why is this possible? Why is it possible for these rates to go up? Inflation is going up. So as inflation goes up faster, then they can raise rates, right? So inflation is rising even faster than the rates are rising. So
when you say inflation, what are you referring to? Just to be specific here. Are you talking about like a monetary base, or are you just talking about consumer prices? Or
let's just keep it at CPI, Consumer Price Index, which is at 8.5% in the United States, right? A few months ago, when these bonds are yielding negative, or in the United States when they're sitting at 1%, and now the 10-year Treasury is sitting at about 3%. Okay, it's gone up from 1 to 3, but inflation CPI was sitting at like 4 or 5, and now it's at 8.5. So inflation's going up faster than these bonds are going up. So I think this is what we were talking about earlier. They can inflate away the debt by inflation going higher means that they can raise rates to a certain extent, because there will still be a gap in between overall inflation, and what the bonds are yielding. So I think that's kind of how I look at it. Is it's made possible if inflation were super low, and then I think it would be a lot harder to raise these rates without seeing a bunch of hiccups in the markets. And even so, like there's still a lot of price manipulation going on, because they can stuff money in a lot of different places because of all the money printing and because of what's going on with inflation. But I just look at it as, yeah, interest rates are rising, but inflation's rising faster. And normally, if you look at a period like the 1980s when Paul Volcker came in after the 70s and he ratcheted up the interest rate, and that kind of curtailed inflation. And so I think that's what they're trying to make it look like is happening, but inflation is running hotter, still much hotter than the interest rates are. So who knows? People say, they're saying there's gonna be more rates that like they're gonna be more periods that they're gonna raise rates. The Fed will.
It's pretty interesting though, because they started in January roughly, I think, like they started announcing that they were going to like cut back on spending, and less QE. They were going to tighten. We've seen that the balance sheets are still expanding, however, at lower rates, right? And they've raised interest rates by 25 basis points or something, and they're threatening for So it's all been very minimal. At the same time, you do see things changing, right? Because first of all, they said it. Now you see that, like, all right, these rates or these yields are going up. At the same time, and let me just switch screen here. I don't know. Can you still see my screen, Sean?
Yes. Yeah.
If I go, for instance, to like look at what Google's doing. In that same period, we see like we see Netflix. The stock markets. Like Tesla. Okay, still pretty up there. But basically, like the S&P 500, is starting to roll over, right? And it looks like it's about to, maybe crash. So all these things do seem like they're having their impact, which is, again, crazy to me that we are giving so much power in the hand. I mean, what is free about these markets if they get to, turn the dial to, okay, markets go up and markets go down, right? It's just, and with Bitcoin, the same. Like on the days that you see these massive drawdowns on the S&P 500, there is usually some correlation there with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will struggle. In the end, like that correlation always breaks at some point, and we just continue up or go faster. But it's still interesting to me, like how they can just manipulate the markets like this. And if they keep this up also, like how far are they going to, if they keep tightening and the markets react by just plummeting, and all this market cap of the S&P 500 and all these stocks are like completely wiped out, that means there's going to be some stress in the system, right? Because probably people will want to sell or being forced to sell, or people can't make due on their debts, or like they're under collateralized, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to have like this cascading domino effect throughout the whole system, right? So anyway, it's a fascinating
and these things all play into what's going on with Bitcoin, because I think a lot of people will look at the overall macro markets, and when you look at what's going on, Bitcoin historically has been looked at as like a risk on. So that's why a lot of times it does follow stock prices, and people go, well, why does, when is Bitcoin going to decouple? And it probably won't decouple from stocks for good until the market cap gets a lot higher. But right now it's looked at as risk on, similar to like the S&P 500 or NASDAQ or certain stocks. And so it's interesting because it'll not follow, but it'll be correlated to what's going on in the stock market for when we're in like these crab markets like we are right now. When it's like running sideways, it'll just kind of just be correlated to what's going on in the stock market. And then it'll have this massive run up, just, shoot up. Then it'll like level out again, or maybe dip. And then it'll just do the same. Then it'll be like back. Oh, it's everyone goes, oh, for last year, it's been correlated, to the stock market. And then you go, yeah, well, it's correlated to risk on until it's not. And then when it's not, that's when you see a bunch of gains. And that's why you just have to hold and just hold Bitcoin, buy more Bitcoin, stay away from the altcoins. They're all securities. They're unregistered securities. and their surveillance tools, they aren't freedom money like Bitcoin is. They don't give you more freedom. And that's the difference, is Bitcoin gives you freedom, while the other monies are slippery slopes into a dystopian surveillance world that no one really wants, except for the people that control everything.
Yeah.
So is that all for today? Is that all for today?
Yeah, we had one more topic. I don't know if you want to cover it still, but it literally just broke that Elon Musk apparently is buying Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been out for a while, but apparently the deal really went through today, or just very close to going through. But it seems that it's really going to happen. You know, they tried to take some poison pill, some poison pill strategy. And the board tried to do that to block Elon Musk from buying it, but apparently they still went ahead and took him up on his offer. Any thoughts there? Because his motivation is that freedom of speech is one of the most important things, and thus we need to take Twitter private. At the same time, he's saying we need to authenticate all human users, from what I read.
Yeah.
So, you know, to me, it's really like crazy that Twitter has been like completely unusable, right? And like, I'm just a pleb. I like to make memes, and that's why I got a little bit more followers, because people love memes. And when they see a meme, they're like, oh, I got to follow this account. But like, more followers is really not a blessing, because the minute I tweet something now, I get like 5 or 6 spammers under, like literally instantly somebody will put under there like, oh, the Bitcoin is moving into a new range right now. Please check out my Telegram channel. And it's just like these, and they're getting very crafty in their comments, right? And they make it sound like they're really friendly and helpful, but they're just trying to scam you. But I block them right away, but it's just completely, and all these accounts that will just copy the exact profile of an existing account, the exact same avatar, and they'll change like one character in the handle name, and they'll start retweeting everything. And it's like, that must be like the easiest thing to solve, seems to me, right? I mean, how hard can it be? Like, all right, this is somebody trying to copy somebody else. Let's just turn off this account. But any thoughts there, Sean? It's I don't get it.
First of all, the bots are getting better on Twitter, because they're like I'm getting some comments, and they're like, the profile picture will have laser eyes. It'll be like a really vague comment, and so it's just like there to confuse you. And then I'm like, okay, I'm not even gonna. It's like, I don't know if this is a real person or if this is just the bot. Like, it's so hard to tell sometimes. And so then you try to like hide the reply, because you're like, I think this is a bot, and I don't want someone to get scammed who's looking at my tweet. You know, like, I don't want someone to get scammed who's looking at my tweet, so I'll hide the reply. But if it's someone who's like a Link Marine or something like that, then I'll let them reply whatever, and then let people hate on them. But as far as Elon Musk goes buying Twitter, I look at him more than anything as like an activist investor. I was part of a company one time where we got bought out. We were a publicly traded company, a software company out in Salt Lake City. And we had some activist investors going hard. And then we ended up getting bought out, went private, and by some like VC company or private equity firm actually bought us out. And then they just do a bunch of like layoffs and things like that. But I just don't know what Elon Musk, if he's really acting on what he's saying, right? Like, is he being true to like, I just want freedom of speech, and there's a lot of people that get banned. Like, you can post a picture, like a totally pornographic picture, and you don't get banned, but you say like the wrong word or the wrong meaning of something, and then you can get banned on Twitter. So
you say like, something wrong about the facts, or about Fauci, and you can get banned. Or right now, if you say something wrong about Russia, you could get banned, right? If you're like
or like with
my
COVID,
issue
with
is
COVID. Why couldn't you say something like, and then if you're wrong, let the market prove that you're wrong. Like, let people call you an idiot. Like, I should be allowed to say whatever I want to say, but people should be allowed to call me an idiot and call me stupid for saying what I say if it's dumb and stupid. Like, that's how I look at free speech. It shouldn't be like, no, we have to stop saying everything. We can only say what's in the Overton window. Like, no, like, we should be allowed to say whatever we want to say. And if people don't agree with it, they don't agree with it. Call me out on it, right? Or then maybe I can explain what I'm trying to say, but don't, like, just being able to totally censor someone is, I think that's very scary as far as free speech goes. And I know Twitter is a private company, but it's this platform that a lot of people go to use. So I think it does become like a freedom of speech topic. I don't know if centralizing it into one power like Elon Musk.
That's the problem,
Yeah,
if you're
like,
putting
is that
it
the right
again,
answer?
you're giving again like too much power in the hands of one person.
Yeah.
That's my issue. That's the only issue I have. I mean, I don't have any. Yeah, I do have some issues with Elon Musk, but like, besides Elon Musk, right? Just giving any one person. And I also have that same worry about Starlink, by the way. If like one person owns like the entire, he's going to be able to like provide the whole world with like high-speed internet through Starlink. I mean, that's a pretty powerful thing, right? If you have that in your hands, then if you also control one of like the main open communications platforms of the world, if you look at yourself as a nation state, then what's been said on the 8 o'clock news at night is always very, clean and censored. And, like, politics always want to have, like, any dictator will dictate what's going to be said on the news there. Yeah. We know that, media is an important way to shape attitudes and thoughts of citizens. Even though you can't make them think what you want to think, you can make them think what they're thinking about. Right. So
yes.
If you want to distract them with other stuff, and you can control the narratives, it's just to at least a very strong extent. So giving a platform like I wish, what Bitcoin is doing for money, that we can have like a similar system for communications protocol, or, completely decentralized, where everybody can,
in the words,
immutable, open, uncensorable. That would be good.
In the words,
so he seems to be coming in with the right incentives, but we're just, let's not praise him, and let's see if he brings the goods first, right?
To be determined. I do like that he's making all the soy boys cry, and I like that. So
it's been crazy, because even like Saudi Arabia was against it.
Yeah,
a lot of people are scared of this, and that kind of goes to show that they were happy with all the control structures they had in place, right? It's but
then you just wonder. Nah, I'm not gonna get in that. All I'm gonna say is, in the words of Kanye West, no one man should have all that power, right? So that's a lot of power for one man to have. As far as Bitcoin goes, it's the time for us to go harder, right? To do more, to promote freedom of speech. Your money, being able to spend your money, is freedom of speech. It's freedom of communication. That's going to do it for this episode of Bitcoiner's Guide, episode 9. Don't forget, this Thursday, we have Saif Deen Amus, the author of the Bitcoin Standard. He joins the Meme Factory podcast at 7:30 p.m. live. That's Eastern time. Again, this Thursday on the same channel, the Meme Factory channel. Also, remember, what you see here, what you hear here, when you leave here, don't just let it stay here. Please share, like, give a comment, leave a review. That just helps out with the algorithms, as other people are looking for some good content to share. As for Bitcoiner's Guide, episode 9, from Play Marcus and Big Sean, we're over and out.
Keep stacking.